Hello and welcome back to our midweek devotionals. We continue on this July the 7th, Wednesday, July the 7th, on page 11 of Christ in Our Home with a reading from the 7th chapter of John, verses 1 through 9. Interesting thing I've found looking at this particular quarter of Christ in Our Home is that we only get one reading every week or every day. Typically, there'd be several readings and I would normally choose the gospel reading to talk about, but in this case, we get what we get. So it'll be an interesting journey this quarter as we look at Isaiah and some of the Psalms and some of the other Old Testament readings as we continue. So look forward to that. But today we continue in John chapter 7, verses 1 through 9. John writes this. After this, Jesus went about in Galilee. He did not wish to go to Judea because the Jews were looking for an opportunity to kill him. Now the Jewish festival of booths was near. So his brothers said to him, "Leave here and go to Judea, so that your disciples also may see the works you're doing. For no one who wants to be widely known acts in secret. If you do these things, show yourself to the world." For not even his brothers believed in him. Jesus said to them, "My time has not yet come, but your time is always here. The world cannot hate you, but it hates me because I testify against it that its works are evil. Go to the festival yourselves. I'm not going to this festival, for my time has not yet come." After saying this, he remained in Galilee. Our reflective reading this morning is titled "The Right Time." I've learned in over 10 years of being married that just because I want to talk about something or share some frustration, that doesn't mean it's the right time to do so. Am I in the right mindset? Is my spouse in the right mindset to hear me? Are we just about to leave for work so there won't be enough time to process everything and it might ruin the morning? What I want to say or express may have value and may need to be said, but it may not be the right time. Thinking that now would be a great time for Jesus to reveal himself to a wider audience, if in fact he was who he claimed to be, his brothers urge him to travel with them to Jerusalem. Jesus knows that what he has to say is necessary and important, but it is not yet the right time. Discernment is crucial, especially when we have something important to say or do. This is true not only in committed relationships, but in other areas of life as well. Thanks be to God that the Holy Spirit's guidance is available to help us discern what to do and when. When I was in the middle of my internship, I should say, I had the opportunity to hear Brian McLaren speak. Brian McLaren is a contemporary theologian, you might say. He's rethinking what it means to be a Christian in the world, and particularly in the United States. And he said this quick turn of phrase that I thought was pretty cool. He was talking about a family member comes up to have an impromptu discussion, or in his case, someone at one of his presentations might come up and have something to say. And they would say something profound that he didn't necessarily agree with. And he would go, "Wow, I've never thought of it that way. Tell me more." Now, it did a couple of things. One, it let that other person tell their side of the story, their set of facts, opinions, ideas, and it gave him some space to hear them, which I think is an important part of any conversation. Probably the most important part of any conversation is to hear what the other person has to say, and not hear in order to make a response. Brian says that during these interchanges, he has no intention to respond at that particular moment. He clears all that distraction away and listens to hear what they have to say. He's not in the background trying to formulate a response, which that happens in most of our conversations. I hear you just long enough to be able to say something back. So it totally changes the dynamic of the conversation when you take time to discern, to listen to what the other person has to say. And then Brian will say that after the other person has presented their case, you might say, I don't quite see it the same way. Let's get together sometime and talk about it. And then that gives us some more space for the other person to continue to formalize their thoughts, because most of the time it's an impromptu discussion. It gives me, or in this case gives Brian, an opportunity to formulate his thoughts in response to what he had just heard. And we can meet in a place and a time that is the appropriate time to have maybe a in-depth conversation rather than a heated exchange of words. I wonder what it looks like in our daily conversations if someone throws something at you and you're not quite ready for it. If you were just say, wow, I don't know that I've ever heard it that way. Tell me more. To hear what they have to say, not trying to respond, but to listen, and then say, hey, let's get together for coffee next Wednesday, and we'll talk about it some more. I don't see things quite the same way you do, but I'd like to sit on it for a little bit, to really think about what you've had to say. Talk about lowering the anxiety level in a confrontation. Jesus says it's not quite my time to go to Jerusalem to stir up the crowds the way that he actually does in the rest of this same chapter, by the way. But he says it's not quite my time to go do that. Let me discern what it means to go and share the good news in a way that people are going to be able to hear it and not be afraid that they're going to be arrested with me. What does it look like for us to share the good news of Jesus in a way that could be upfront and in people's faces and often in that time off-putting, or to be discerning about how we share the good news in the way that we live, in the way that we approach discussions that can be heated but don't need to be? I think that could certainly be a way to help change the world around us, the way that Jesus' love indeed changes the world around us. Happy are we called to share in spreading that good news. I hope you enjoyed our devotional today. Hope to see you again back here next week. I do want to say a special thanks to all of you who have sent cards or said prayers as I went through this gallbladder surgery. Seem to be doing pretty well. Can't wait to see you all back here in church on Sunday or here on the video again next week. Until then, have an awesome week.